Thank you all for coming. This paper is related with the epigraphic and sculptural material that we have found from Kankali Tila. So I'll take you with my site briefly about the history, how it developed, what were the nuances that were coming in late 18th and 19th century, and then after about my recent research about this topic. So the name, first of all, the Kankali Tila is a modern name. It's not the original name. The original name was Jaini Tila or Chaurasi Tila. It was famously known earlier as Chaurasi Tila. So this name comes from the Hindu goddess Kankali, represented by an ancient carved pillar, which the village people there worship. And the temple, this temple stands in between the well and the Jain stupa in the two temples that were excavated by Führer in this 1890-91 excavation. So this pillar actually is of Buddhist carvings, and the village people who do not know much nuanced understanding about the Buddhism and its architectural material consider it as a local goddess Kankali. So the name of the site comes from this temple that is there right now. Now, as per my sources, I have 98 epigraphs from Jain site that was excavated. The epigraphs and the icons are in Mathura Museum, some are there in Lucknow Museum, some are in National Museum Delhi also, and most of them have been taken to the British Museum, as was the case with our material. The sculptural material is especially the Ayagpat, a Jain votive tablet of homage that was worshipped by the people. Now, about the site, as you all know, this site is multi-religious. So it has very early traces of Yaksha and Yakshi worship also, Nag and Nagin worship, Jainism, Buddhism, other deities of Bhagavatism. So this is located with many other religious affiliations. Now in Mathura itself, there are many sites which are associated with other religions also, like the Jamalpur mound that has been excavated is related with Naga worship. The Saptarshi Tila belongs to Sarvastivadin sect, and Palikhera belongs to Mahasangik sect. Now, I emphasize on two things. One is regio-specificity of Mathura. The other is religio-specificity of Mathura. By regio-specificity, I mean by the material culture of Kankali Tila particularly in context with other sites. Those I have just explained belonging to other religions. Then religio specificity of Kankali Tila relates to the epigraphic evidence, then Ayakpatas and stupa worship that we have found only one in India related with Jainism. So this all material was excavated in 1888, 1896, and how it was excavated and why it was excavated, that is of utmost value to us to understand Jainism. Now, there is another concept in archaeological studies, that is heterarchy versus the hierarchy, as we rank the systems in a typical order. In heterarchy, we do not rank the systems. They compete and contest with each other. So, as per my observations, Mathura belongs to a hierarchical site where different religious traditions were contesting as well as competing with each other. Now, this hierarchy represents different types of network structures that allow different degrees of connectivity. It is existence of two or more functionally discrete but unranked systems. So they are not ranked that Buddhism is superior to Jainism in Mathura, or the Naga worship was more popular, but we are seeing the different systems on a time range as equal, as competing with each other. Here, original excavation, as you all know, Alexander Cunningham visited almost all sites in India and then he excavated this. So it was reopened by Burgess in 1888 and then continually excavated by Führer from 1889 onwards. So he left without publishing anything. He huddled everything together, not taking stratigraphy or any other method of archaeological studies. So all the material was huddled together. Later, V.A. Smith published his plates with Buller's interpretation of inscriptions. So inscriptions were read by someone else, and the excavation was done by someone else, and the data was collected then after. So this is the original site that was excavated in Mathura. You can see the orchards are there, mango orchards, and this is the original site in 1888. Again, at that time, Alexander Cunningham was very much obsessed with Buddhism. So in archaeological studies, and stupa worship was, and the sites were very known of Buddhism. So Buddhism was a well-established area of study, but Jainism was not. So here the excavation was done to corroborate the Kalpa Sutra with the archaeological material. The Jain text and the archaeological material was mixed into, and the Jain order of, Shakha, Gana and Kul, that was found from the epigraph also. So on this basis, the site was associated with Jainism, apart from the Jain images also. Then after, Archaeological Survey of India also excavated this site from 1773 to 1977. But the problem with Mathura is it is densely populated. So you cannot excavate every particular area that you want to. And this Jaina mound was at Mathura was associated with the phase 2nd to 1st century BCE. So this is very sure that we are talking about the images that belong to this period of study. The objectives of this study that I took upon was to combine the epigraphic material with the image. That was the lacuna of Jainism at Kankali Tila, that images were read by someone else and the epigraphs were read separately. But if you want to see the evidence in a holistic perspective, you have to see the image also and then corresponding inscription. Then only you can understand what was going on, the part of laity. That was not considered at all important at that point of time, because everybody was interested in establishing Jainism as original and separate religion from Buddhism. Nobody was paying attention why so much support for Jainism in Mathura. Why almost 84% donations were coming from female laity only. The followers and sympathizers of Jainism, why females were donating so much? As you can understand, if you have seen the work of Lisa and Owen about the Jainism in Tamil Nadu, there also almost 70 to 75% inscriptions are donated by female laity in Jainism. So why Jainism is successful in exploiting this section of laity? Nobody is taking this question into importance. Now I'm seeing Jainism as a religion in practice, and it has very different understanding at what is coming from the text and what I am finding here at the site. Here, the iconography of Jainism, the Jain images of Mathura can be classified into three: the seated, the standing images, and the Sarvato Bhadrik Pratima. This is a fourfold icon of Jain Tirthankars. This is also called Chaumukhi, because you can see the Arhat from all the four sides. The installation of fourfold icon was regarded as a symbolic representation of Samvasaran, that is highly auspicious event after the attainment of Keval Jnan in Jainism. When Arhat attains Kaivalya, after that the Indra conducts an assembly in which he worships the Tirthankar. So that is considered very auspicious in Jainism once the Tirthankar has attained the Kaivalya. So this is a typical Chaumukhi Pratima. You can see the hooded canopy around one Tirthankar. This is Parshvanath, the 23rd Tirthankar. and his distinguished mark is 7 hooded canopy around his head. The other is Suparshvanath, which is identified by a emblem of swastik. So this is a typical Chaumukhi Pratima, and you can understand why this was donated very little, because the construction value of this image is fourfold. If you are donating a single image of a Arhat or a Tirthankar, that would not be so much costly as this one. So about this, I have done the study on 98 inscriptions and all the images that have been found. From 98, 54 are identifiable on the basis of available inscription. So 60% are in seated position, only 24% are in standing position, and then these Sarvato Bhadrika Pratima are only 16%, that is 9. So because this is very costly, so only the mercantile section of laity or a section that is highly affluent can afford to donate these kind of images. These icons were donated on the request of the preceptor. The Jain monks and nuns were initiating the process of icon donation, and on their directions, the images were donated. Like who all were donating these kind of fourfold icons? Kumar Mita, wife of a Sethi, as you can understand from the mercantile section, on the request of female preceptor Vasula. So a female laity is donating on the request of a female a nun, a female monk. So Sihadatta, wife of a village headman, Jainag, and daughter-in-law of also a village headman. So again, an affluent section of the society is donating. Mother of a perfumer, Jeet Mitra, donated the same standing icon on the request of Gani Arya Nandika. Again, the female donor and the nun initiating the process. Again, the last one, the Thambak and Papak, laymen from Navagrama village, that is not identifiable, donated the fourfold icon of Vardhaman on the request of Acharya Vijay Singha in 1023 CE. So these earlier 3 donations were made from 1st century BCE to 2nd century CE, and the last one is approximately in 11th century. This also shows the continuous tradition of donating the images. Although it has reduced after the so-called Kushana era, ultimately the tradition continued. That is reflected by this last epigraph. Now, Vardhaman icons. The most famous are the Vardhaman icons, and we have found the 19th. Vardhaman is known as Mahavir also in some inscriptions, but the most important factor of Jainism in Kankali Tila is not in a single inscription the word Tirthankar is mentioned. In all the inscriptions, all the fold makers of Jainism are mentioned as Arhat only. So this is the original terminology. Later on it was changed. Like in one inscription in the reign of Vasudeva, the Kushana king, Mahavir has been referred to as a destroyer of devas. This also provides the context to the continued development of Jainism with contestation and contradictions with other religions. Mahavir is considered as the destroyer of the devas. So the other competing religions were criticized on this pretext. The other Tirthankaras which are famous in Jainism in Mathura, the Rishabhnath, Shantinath, Arishtanemi, Parshvanath, and Sumatinath are clearly traceable. So the Rishabhnath or Adinath can be identified with the lock of hair. He has a lock of hair. In the images, the Parshvanath can be recognized through the snake canopy. As I told you earlier, the Neminath has a figure of Krishna and Balram, as he was considered the relative of the Krishna and Balram. And the presence of icons supports existence of a well-established Jaina monastic order, as well as strong support provided by the laity. So I am looking at this confluence, why the monks and nuns were there and why the laity was donating so overwhelmingly, especially the female laity. So this was the cause of flourishing Jainism in this period. Again, coming to the stupa worship in Jainism, most of the people contradict this statement that this stupa was originally Buddhist. and then Jain captured it, and then it came to be known as a Jain stupa. But this is not the case. Actually, we have found one stupa and two temples adjoining to the stupa, and all the images are Jain from this excavation. This stupa is represented in this way. This is a typical Ayagpat stupa donation, in which the stupa is adorned with the staircase and the perambulation path also on all the four sides, and the divine beings are above the stupa. The Kinnaras and Gandharvas are shown as the divine beings, and if you see, the inscription is in between on the stupa. If you see clearly, this is the inscription that has been written. This is a typical donation of Ayagpat that is not found in Jainism afterwards. Now, the worship of Arhats. So, the inscriptions start with the words the Siddham, Namo Vardhamanasya, or Namo Arhanta Nam. This consistent use of these traditional formula project veneration and adoration to Arhats. So there are 6 inscriptions which refer to the donation of the icon for the worship of Arhats very clearly. Many people, especially the foreign Jain professors and scholars, maybe Johnny Cort and others, Padmanabha S. Jaini, they are trying to understand Jainism as a religion without practices. This is not the case here in Mathura. We can clearly see that the Jains were also doing worship patterns, the ritual worship that they were involved in with the stupa and their buildings and their images and ayagpatas. Now, about the inscriptions donated by laywoman Datta and laywoman Goma, the ironsmith referred to the establishment of the icons for pleasing Rishabhnath. Uttar Dashak lay hearer donated an ark on a large rectangular slab on the advice of Maharakshita for the temple. So there is clear mention of the temple also, there is clear mention of the stupa also in the epigraphs. Now, again, a Mahavira icon was donated and set up in the Ayatan. For Ayatan means the temple that was associated with the stupa. So this process of icons of Arhat for worship denotes a strong possibility of a ritual culture, including religious gatherings, gifting necessary items to mendicants and praying, chanting sacred formulas, offering flowers and lighting lamps. For lack of evidence on part of the architectural material or epigraphic material does not show the lack of activities on the part of laity. The laity was definitely doing these kind of things. We may not find the evidence every time for everything. Now the ayagpatas, the unique plates that I was talking about. This is a unique ayagpata donation again. This represents the stupa. The upper part of this ayagpata is mutilated. So in this also, this was donated by the Shiva Yasha, wife of dancer Faggu Yasha. So she donated this, and it bears a representation of the stupa surrounded by perambulation path, guarded by a railing, 4 steps, ascending. So all those things that we saw in the last one, the same kind of sculpture is represented in this ayagpata also. Now, these votive slabs were donated for the worship of Arhats, definitely. And a miniature scribed votive stupa found from the holy gate of Mathura represents the stupa in the same manner as have been found in other representations. And it starts with adoration to Arhat Vardhamana. Namo Arhat Vardhamanasya. So, the use of miniature votive stupas in Jaina iconography further supports the possibility of a stupa worship cult that I am suggesting. This is a typical ayagpat again. This is in British Museum right now. Epigraph is on the lower side of the ayagpat. This is again a beautiful ayagpat from Mathura. One Tirthankar is situated in between the image, in the center of the image. The religious symbols of Jainism, swastik and the mean, the fish and others are represented. This is again a typical ayagpat that is now in British Museum. So again the Tirthankar is in between the auspicious symbols are represented, and the epigraph is on the lower side of the ayakpat. This is a better picture of the same one that you can see. This is a half broken stupa. So this is a half broken one. The half part is available only. You can see Tirthankar very clearly here, and the Jain auspicious symbols around. If you look at this one also, or Dharma Chakra, the elephant is represented. This is a bit better one. The swastik symbol that is very common to other religions also. The Hinduism also, the Vedic religion that you call in, and the Jainism also. The two fish, this is very particular symbol in Jainism. So these are the special ayakpats. Later on in Shatrunjay inscriptions in Rajasthan and in other inscriptions in Gujarat, we find Panch Parmeshtin patas. The Panch Parmeshtin patas are there, but not the ayakpatas. These were called ayakpats, the homage tablets, and they are particularly found from Kankali Tila only. Now, the unique features of Mathura Jainism, I find the three features very, very particular to Jainism in Mathura. One is Amohini, the female lay disciple, donated a slab representing ornamented Ayavati. Now, this Ayavati is a Yakshi who is worshipped in Jainism. In the year 42 of the king Shodash, the Kshatrapa ruler. So, if we see, this is the image, and the epigraph is on the top side, if you can see. And this is Ayavati, the Yakshi, with a parsol with the attendants. If you look at the closer picture, this is Ayavati, the Yakshi, who was worshipped in Jainism. You can see the Chhatra at the top, the parsol by the attendants. The other important feature about Jainism in Mathura is the Nemoso. The god-headed deity is depicted in sculptural frieze along with three females and one young child near the left knee. So if you look at this one, this is also from Mathura, again in British Museum now. So this is goat-headed deity, and this deity was related with the childbirth and inflicting diseases to the children. So it is said that, as you can see downwards, it is written also. So this deity was responsible for transferring the embryo of Mahavir from one woman to another woman. So from a Brahmani to a Kshatrani, as has been seen in the Jain literature, because as you can see, both the Buddhism and Jainism were started by the Kshatriyas. So they are representing that contradiction also, that confrontation part that was going on the Shoshan plane also. The next one, this is the reverse part. So the ladies are singing the songs and chanting and dancing and trying to please this goat-headed deity. This is also very particular feature of Jainism in Kankali Tila. We have never found it after Kushana period. I think as I have researched, this deity was stopped being worshipped after the Kushana period, from 3rd century onwards. So these two are very important features. This is again a closer picture of Nemesu. The epigraph that says Bhagwan Nemesu only, nothing more than that. Now the worship of Saraswati. The Saraswati is, as you can now also understand in Jainism, very integral to the worship of Jainism. There is only one icon that we have found from Mathura, and the epigraph is downwards. The image is half mutilated. So, but it is very clear that in the left hand, she is holding the books or any kind of manuscript. So, by the epigraph also, it is very clear. I'll go to the epigraph. This donation was recorded for pleasing Rishabhnath by Goa, an ironsmith, son of the Siya, on the request of preacher Deva, who belonged to Kotyagana, Shrigraha Sambhog, and Sthaniya Kul Vaira Shakha. So this is a typical type of donation in Kankali Tila where the Gana, Sambhog, Kul and Shakha are represented very clearly. As we found in the later Kalpa Sutra, that is assigned to the 6th century CE text of Jainism, the same kind of Gana, Kul, Shakha are described in Kalpa Sutra. The epigraphs and the excavation at Kankali Tila was done for this purpose, to corroborate the archaeological evidence with textual references. But now I am trying to look at the perspective of the donors, why they were donating, the female laity, why they were supporting it so much. So the association of goddess Saraswati has been seen in Jainism in the later period in texts as well as sculptural materials. This is the only icon, as I have told you earlier also. This is my conclusion, that the Jain life at Mathura was atypical of what textual references are telling us. Architectural and sculptural material tell us a different picture, that local cults, the Yakshis, the Nagas were intermingled and incorporated in Jainism. Because you know Mathura is a place of originally Naga worship and Yaksha worship also. So they were also incorporated in the images and they were given the secondary position to the Arhats and Tirthankars. Now, stupa and other evidence indicate a variety of religious interactions between ascetic and the laity that propose significance of the role of the lay community in early Jaina history. This process provides us the lenses through which the fluidity of the tradition can be easily distinguished in the face of usual assumption about its character and Jaina tradition as a monolith. Because most of the foreign scholars think that Jaina tradition is a contradiction between very rigorous monastic principles and affluent laity. The lay community is very rich of Jains, and the monks and nuns, they are living a very hard kind of life. So there is a juxtaposition among these two factors. When you see the foreign scholars, they cannot understand why it is so. This is again from Kankali Tila. I could not get the original one, so I got for you from the Epigraphia Indica. So this particular image shows the stupa worship that has been declined in Jainism, and it says, the inscription says that the stupa was built by the gods for the Jains. And it was so ancient that the original, the timing of building of this stupa was never known. The inscription says so. So there was no point saying that the stupa was Buddhist and later was controlled or captured by the Jains. Now, this religious architecture, all this architecture, the images and the epigraphs that I am working in shows diverse interaction between the worshippers, ritual specialists, patrons, artisans, and so on, because people were making images and then somebody was purchasing that and then they were donating on the request of their monks and nuns. So this huge economic transaction was going on, and this we can find only through the help of architectural material. We can provide an alternative for the studying religious practices in a particular region and locale. In this way, the issue of existence of a flourishing Jain establishment at Kankali Tila with the regio-specificity of a powerful presence of female laity, nuns, donation of icons, ayapatas, and the regio-specificity of stupa icon worship, two temples that were present at the site, and very important, Ardha monks created a need for reconstruction of Jainism at Mathura through inscriptional and architectural evidence. Now, the last one, the locality of Jainism in particular context of Mathura was peculiar in the matter of a distinct ritual culture that I am proposing. There was a ritual culture that was going on around this stupa. There was a powerful presence of arhats and its veneration, which would have created a profound effect. And the monks were involved in the spiritual worship of the arhats, and it was the laity who would have been involved in the material worship as well as sustenance of this religious process. Okay, thank you so much.